Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 131. Today on the podcast, an interview with author, speaker, entrepreneur, and CEO Mary Shores on the subject of how to use conscious communication to advance your career. I'm really looking forward to this interview. I think it could really help me a lot. I once used unconscious communication in the workplace. It turns out that talking loudly in your sleep when your boss is in the middle of a presentation is not a good career advancement strategy.
Hey, this is Jen Swanson with the Communication Diva Podcast, the podcast that helps you to get the job, to love your work, and to advance your career. And today I'm going to be talking to Mary Shores, who is the founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar business, and she is an author and a speaker and an entrepreneur, and her book is going to be coming out in August of 2017. It's called Conscious Communications, a step-by-step guide to harnessing the power of your words to change your mind, your choices, and your life. And so this is the conversation that I had with Mary, and my focus today was on how to advance your career using conscious communications. So I'll turn you over to this episode now, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode number 131. And today I am happy to be speaking with Mary Shores. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Jen. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm glad we can do this through the powers of technology. It's amazing that we're so far away, and yet we can do this in real time, and it's great.
We are far away. So as a matter of fact, I am in Champaign, Illinois. And for all of your listeners who don't know where in the world that is, just think cows and cornfields.
I have horses and wineries around where I am up in near Vancouver. So
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
It's lovely up here too. So I want to just begin by asking you to tell us a little bit about what brought you to where you are today.
Well, it's a combination of so many things. I became an entrepreneur at a very young age. I started my business when I was 24 and was very much just did it all by myself. So, I did every job that would come up, and I was the youngest person to start a business in my industry in the country. So I was 24 and I started a debt collection company. And several years after that, I just immersed myself into personal development. And so after a decade of personal development work, it was just time for me to share everything I had learned with the world. And that led me to getting a book deal with my dream publisher, who is Hay House. And boom, there we are.
And so you were inspired to write this all down because you wanted to get it out into the world. And when is your book coming out?
My book is for pre-sale now, and the launch date is August 22nd. I think that the inspiration from the book just because it's sort of an inner calling. And I always had this inner calling to write a book, but I did have this limiting belief or barrier belief that I was not a writer because I was a CEO. I just, it took me all the other years just to catch up with the fact that I was capable of writing a book.
And so the book is called Conscious Communication, a step-by-step guide to harnessing the power of your words to change your mind, your choices, and your life. And that's right. That's an amazing title. So
thank you.
Can you tell us what conscious communication is?
Conscious communications is really a guide to how you're communicating with yourself, your neurology, the environment, the world around you, and the actions that you're taking in order to guide your life in the direction that you want. So we're consciously communicating with ourselves and the universe or whatever that you believe. Because we all know that saying, you speak your truth into existence. But it's so much deeper than that because there's a neurology of why this happens. So I definitely have spent years learning neurology, neurobiology, the chemicals that are driving our nervous system and those neural pathways that are driving our beliefs and our behaviors.
So I have the master practitioner training in the neuro-linguistic programming, which is NLP, and I've also been fascinated in how the words we use shape our lives. What have you noticed in the learnings that you've been doing? Have you noticed shifts in your own world because of the change in how you use language?
Oh, absolutely. So for the many years that I said I'm not a writer, there was not going to be a day that I ever wrote a paragraph down that was going to connect me to ever finishing a book, because internally, those words that I was speaking, I'm not a writer, is a reflection of a belief that was inside my mind that I was not capable of writing a book. And the moment that I could change those words and those beliefs then became the moment that I started to take a different type of action to lead me into the direction that I wanted to go. Sometimes it's just as simple as taking one step in a new direction in life.
So there's been a lot of talk in recent years about manifesting and manifesting things into existence. Is this similar, or is it more that you have to actually take the action to follow your new belief once you get rid of that limiting belief?
So I would say that it's equal parts of both. My friends call me the Rosetta Stone of manifestation because I think that it's not just one thing. As much as we want it to be one thing, like law of attraction, or what we speak, there's a best-selling book called Write It Down, Make It Happen. But it's really a feedback loop of all of those things. So we can believe something all day long until the cows come home, or, the wine ripens, or whatever you want to say. But unless we take action towards those things that we want, then they're not going to manifest. And so the truth about manifestation is that we have to get your words, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions in alignment with what your goals are. And so what happens is we set a goal, like we want to lose 20 pounds, but then our other things are not in alignment with that. And so a lot of this book was my own personal quest to understand these spiritual terminology, like getting into alignment. That was such a foreign concept to me. Or the power of now. Whenever I would hear the power of now, I would just think, I don't even know what you're talking about, because people who are entrepreneurial a lot of times are very focused in the future.
Right.
We're always creating the things that we want to see happen tomorrow, but we're not really taking the time to understand what the power of now means. And for me, when I really got into this, I understood so clearly that we're creating our realities with every micro moment of our lives, because of every choice that we make. Every choice we make in every moment is going to open a slightly different future for us. So it's not something that you will notice a difference of in a day or a month, but over a period of months or over a period of years. When you look back, you can clearly see how choices connected you to where you are today. And if you had made a different choice, you would be living a way different life. And so the beauty of this becomes like, well, if I can accept that as my truth and this power of now, then how do I make choices that are completely in alignment with what I want? And so what I've done, and the central theme of what I try to teach, is this concept of cleanse or clog, which means quite simply that every choice you make, every word you speak, every action you take, everything that you do in life is either going to cleanse you or clog you. And so if we talk about this from a standpoint of, say, being on a diet, then it's easy to see that if I just ask myself every item of food that I put in my mouth, that's either going to cleanse me or it's going to clog me. So if I eat an apple, then we know that that's going to cleanse. But if I eat a piece of chocolate cake, then we know that that's going to clog. But the thing is that this same cleanse or clog principle is true in every area of your life, in your career, in your finances, in your relationship, in your personal development, in your spirituality, in your family, in your health and wellness. And so everything that we're doing is either creating a connection to what we want, or it's driving a disconnection. And so what I really like to teach, and what my entire book is about, chapter after chapter, is how to create a strong connection with the future that you desire, along with coaching exercises in every chapter to help you train your brain to get the things that you want.
And it is a training, isn't it? I mean, when we're talking about career advancement, what might be some of the things that clog that, do you think?
I have a chart right in the middle of my book, chapter 5, that actually has a cleanse list and a clog list. And we're developing a test, like an online quiz, so that you can put in your category and put in the things to determine your cleanse or clog ratio. So that's going to be quite fun. So I would say that some things that will cleanse or clog your career is that, well, first of all, let's talk about the obvious things. So if I am habitually late to work by 15 minutes more than 3 times a month, would you say that's going to cleanse or clog my career?
Right. Clog it, obviously. Yeah.
Right. Or if I routinely miss deadlines. Okay, but let's talk about, so I think that those things are easy. So then obviously showing up on time would be a cleanse, but it goes deeper than that, because if life were that simple, if we all knew what to do, then we would do a lot better. So those are like the simple things, but let's talk about the deeper ones. So let's say, for example, that you're working on a project for your boss, and it's a really, really important project, and there's several moving parts to the project and several people involved, but there's pieces of it that you don't quite understand, and on the inside you are terrified to let anyone know that you don't understand this certain piece of the project. So you try to force your way through it with tons of anxiety and fear because you're too afraid to ask for clarity. So to me, a good cleanse would be, or a good connecting behavior would be to write an email or ask for a meeting and really say, I need clarity on this particular piece because I know that it's important and I want to get this milestone correct for the overall health of the project. But there's something inside of us that might say, I don't want to look bad, or I don't want my boss to know that I don't know how to do that.
That's that whole fear of failure thing.
Yeah, or fear of looking bad. But ultimately, by not speaking up and getting clarity, that's a clog, because by not speaking up, you're going to lead to the ultimate failure, because you may completely misinterpret that part of the project. And so as a CEO, I've had hundreds of employees over my 20-year career. And I can tell you that those people who were too afraid to speak up ultimately are no longer a part of the team, because I want to invest in people who are willing to ask questions and who are willing to gain the clarity of what is expected of them.
So there's courage that has to be built up here.
That's exactly right.
Because it sounds like, if someone is too afraid, then how do they get over that fear to be able to be vulnerable enough to ask for the help they need so that they can proceed and succeed?
Yes, exactly. Because really, what is the worst that could happen if you ask for clarity? And that's just one example. In my workplace, we just have an environment where everyone loves to be here and we all help each other. So we have 22 employees, and everyone just helps everyone else. And so we've eliminated that type of fear for our environment. But there's other things too, like people will say, oh, I know that you're working on project XYZ, and I think I can help you get this done. And so just even offering help that's going to make another person look good, someone other than yourself, is a huge cleanse, because then that person that you helped is going to remember you down the line when you may least expect it.
Does that come from the top? Does that come from, the culture that you've built as a manager or a CEO of your company? How can someone who isn't in that kind of a position and maybe isn't working in such an open and inviting environment affect that kind of change?
So that's a great question. And I love it because it goes right back to a question of manifestation, because you can only control your own behaviors, right?
Right.
So how can you control, if you're not in a position of management or CEO or executive level position, you may not feel like you have any control over that level of things, but you actually do, because everything you do in life has a ripple effect. So that simple thing that you did, even if it's something as simple as bringing someone coffee when they least expect it, or offering to help in some expected way, is going to create a memory in that person. So now they're building a neural pathway, which is their belief system based on you. So you may not have any control of the management in your company, but what I can absolutely get behind and believe in is that if you are consistently doing the right thing and creating cleansing choices for yourself, and when I say consistently, I don't mean you have to be perfect every moment of every day. It's more like, I have this 80-20 rule that 80% of the time you're choosing cleansing connected choices, and then 20% of the time you don't have to worry about it. So 20% of the time, have your dessert, or do what you need to do, because you can't be perfect all of the time. So what I'm in a sense saying is, you do the behaviors that are going to connect you to your dream. You do the behaviors that are bringing your insides, your greatest gifts that you have internally on the outside. So I don't know if you ever get into any of the Lost Gospels, but are you familiar with the Lost Gospel of Thomas?
I was just going to say, yep, I am.
Yeah. So when the quote that I love the most is, when you bring forth what is within you will save you. And when you do not bring forth what isn't within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. That is such a powerful quote. Like, if you just understood that one principle in life. And so I have a chapter in my book that it's all about alter ego. And what I'm saying is, like, if you were to name your sort of hidden persona that you keep deep down inside yourself, and you let that person out more and more of your life, then making those choices that connect you to the career that you want to have ultimately leads you to what you want. So let's just say that you're doing this, that you're always being the person who's lending a helping hand. You're doing what feels right. You're following your intuition. You're making cleansing choices, but you just have a boss that, for whatever reason, doesn't appreciate those things. Then something's going to happen. The universe is going to step in to support you and your decisions. And maybe it's going to be that you lose that job, but that the job that you get offered instead is 10 times more powerfully in alignment with what you want. So I'll just tell you a quick story, Jen, that sort of illustrates this type of synchronicity.
Sure.
Mother's Day weekend, and this is not a business story. This is just a personal story. It was Mother's Day weekend, and I have a 17-year-old son who he has autism. So he has Asperger's, but technically that's just autism on the spectrum.
Right.
And his behaviors have been getting increasingly difficult to deal with in the last year, which was his junior year of high school. And I was quite literally at my wit's end. I'm a single mother, and he's 6'5" and 250 pounds. And so I was becoming physically intimidated by him. And just like all teenagers, sometimes his mouth was getting super disrespectful. Well, I had been looking into this wilderness program to put him into, and it was a pretty extreme program in Vermont where he would live out in the wilderness for the entire summer. And I had done a lot of research about how nature really helps reset a nervous system. Mm-hmm. And I had done a lot of research, and I really believed in the program, but there was something inside me that was resistant to it. And I didn't know what that was. I think maybe because physically, I think it would be quite a challenge for him. Well, that weekend, I just reached out to all of my other mom friends, and no one had time to talk to me. No one. And I was just devastated because I felt so alone. But here's how the universe supported me. Because I didn't have anyone to talk to, I ended up reaching out to a woman that I knew from a Facebook group because I had done a free coaching session with her. And I knew that she was an autism coach and specialist in New York. So I just said, hey, I need to talk to someone. Well, anyway, long story short, she ended up knowing of all of these programs that existed. And she said, I'm going to send you an email by Tuesday with all of these programs that you can choose from. And so we ended up choosing a program off of that list that was much more in alignment with what my son needs because it's at a technology school in New York. And the point of the story is that it looked to me like I wasn't being supported because I didn't have any of my friends to talk to when I really needed them. But at the end of the day, my result was that I got exactly what I was trying to manifest, which was the perfect program for my son this summer. And so there may be times when you're at your job or you're working your project or you're an entrepreneur and it seems like all the doors are closing around you because there is another one that's getting ready to open. And that one that opens is so mind-blowingly good that you could not have even imagined it.
I was in a situation myself a couple of years ago, and I remember saying to a colleague, this feels like the worst time of our lives right now, but in a few years we're going to look back and say it was the best.
It's so true. And you know, when you think about those things, when you're right in the middle of it, you don't notice it, you know, but if you can just take those deep breaths and just keep being who you really are, keep allowing that person who's the greatness inside of you to come out. So in my book, I tell this story about how I had always identified as Scarlet. And so Scarlet was my alter ego. But when you really think about Scarlet, you know, she's always struggling. She's always, you know, she always has some sort of drama going on in her life.
Right.
And it's always this life or death drama. Well, that was true for my life too. And I realized one day I just had this epiphany that instead of being Scarlet, I wanted to be Dorothy, because Dorothy had the power all along. Dorothy had unconditional love and support by, you know, her team of the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion and even the Wizard in the end.
Right.
So I just think that that's such a good metaphor for life, is when we really let what is inside of us come out, no matter what the consequence is, then in the end, we will be magically drawn. I call it the magic and synchronicities. We will be drawn to that is going to support us and get us what our ultimate desires are.
So I'm thinking right now of people like Byron Katie, and I'm thinking of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, and I'm thinking of this whole movement toward mindfulness. And is it the desire to be more authentic, and is the desire to be more authentic, that longing, is that sort of a pushback against what we've been taught in our culture all these years, that we're not enough?
I think that you're bringing up a really good point about the culture. You know, when we have different origins of where our beliefs come from. And lately, you mentioned Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle. Mm-hmm. Lately, I've been on a kick of listening to Vishen Lakhiani. And one of the things that he coined this term in his book, The Code of the Evolutionary Mind, the culture scape. And the culture scape basically means the beliefs that you grew up with in your culture. And so there's one belief that you're not enough. That probably most likely came from a belief of a family of origin belief. So what I like to call what was the vibe of your tribe. So cultural beliefs are wider scope beliefs. Like, for example, if you grow up Hindu, then you don't believe that you should eat meat or red meat.
Right.
You know, they don't eat red meat because of their beliefs about the cows. Whereas another culture doesn't have that belief because they don't look at cows as sacred animals. So that's an example of a cultural belief. Another cultural belief, especially in the United States, and I'm imagining in Canada as well, is that your life follows a certain trajectory in order to be successful. So like you go to college and then you get a job and then you behave a certain way at the job so that you can get a promotion. And, we have a belief that if you do these things, you will have a happy life. Then you get married and you save for retirement, and your life sort of follows this particular lifeline. And it doesn't take into account for people that maybe feel very strongly that they want to be an entrepreneur, because, that's why they say those people think outside the box. And the reason they're thinking outside the box is because they're not thinking the way that everyone else thinks, because they've gone against their culturescape.
And sometimes it's very difficult to do that, depending on what you've come from. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In fact, if it's a lesson that is so major in life and so hard to turn against, that it's one of the reasons that I say your greatest manifestations happen outside of your comfort zone.
So stretching yourself, is that what you mean?
Absolutely. Getting outside of your comfort zone, getting where you're in the middle of uncertainty, because there's a lot of security in the certainties of life. So for example, taking a chance and starting a business means that you're not going to have a paycheck every Friday or every month. You're not going to have that guaranteed income. And so that's a very scary feeling. That's an example of being outside of your comfort zone, because the comfort zone is having the paycheck every week, or, the outside of your comfort zone is doing something where you don't know, you have no way of predicting what the outcome will be. But by doing that one thing, by taking that one step in a new direction, you can create and manifest wonderful things. And in order to support that, I don't want to sound like I'm expecting people to just go out and fly blind, like they're jumping out of an airplane and they have no control over their fate, because that's not the point. But I have this thing called one-page action plan, and it's what I have always done to plan my career in all of the things that I do. And I do a lot of things. So not only do I run a collection agency, but I also created a system called Words That Work, because my mission in life is for people to understand that they should feel good about paying their debt instead of feeling bad about having a debt. Because having a debt, anyone who has a debt is a psychological burden, and it is a psychological burden that will put a brick wall between the person who has the debt and their dreams in life. Because again, it goes back to what you said. They will believe that they're not good enough. They will believe that they don't deserve to buy a house or to have a certain job or to marry a certain man or woman. They just don't feel worthy because of a debt. And so it's my mission to make people understand that money, having a debt, is a psychological burden, and anything you do to eliminate that, you should be so proud of yourself. And, the other side of that coin is that it's also a psychological burden if anyone has ever owed you money. So if anyone's ever owed you money and not paid you, that feeling in your belly every time you think about that person. So it's also a huge psychological burden to the creditor. And so I created this system called Words That Work that empowers people around their money circumstances. And I've been teaching on this system for more than 10 years. We use it in customer service. We use it in healthcare. We use it for debt collections. It has all kinds of applications. And going back to this one-page action plan, if you start off with your ultimate goal in mind, like I want my system, like my mission is to change the face of debt collections. Okay, so that would be my end result goal. Then I have to reverse engineer that goal to write just a very simple one-page action plan. Because big business plans or big life plans, I feel are so like 1987, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So, because why? Because our environment and the world is changing so fast. So if you write a 5-page plan for yourself, we could be like colonizing the moon in 5 years for all we know. Look at how 10 years ago we didn't even have smartphones.
Exactly.
So how can you plan for the unknown? So I write these one-page action plans, and the entire map, a blueprint of how to write a one-page action plan is in that free giveaway that we're going to give to your listeners. And it's also in my book, Conscious Communications. But it's super simple and it's actually fun to do. So you can take any goal, whether it's make $1 million, meet the man of your dreams, start a business, take a vacation, lose 20 pounds. I mean, whatever you want to do, win a fitness competition, become a public speaker, write a book, any of these. And you start with that end result. And then what you have to do is say, what are 6 things that need to be true in order to reach that goal? And you want those items to be very bullet pointed. And then from there, you break down each one of those 6 items into 3 more items. And you just keep doing that. And what you'll have at the end is a one-page action plan that will be so simple to follow that if you do it, you will, I can't give a guarantee like you will have what you want, like, if your goal is to win the lottery. But what I can say is that if you take the actions on your one-page action plan, you will be much, much closer to manifesting the life that you want than if you did nothing and you just sat around like wishing for it all the time.
I posted a thing on all the social media platforms this morning, a quote from Pablo Picasso that fits this perfectly. Action is the foundational key to all success.
I love that.
I posted that this morning, and I also have created a 5-day email challenge, which is people get a 5 days of email from me for free, and each day there's one action to take towards getting yourself ready to do a job search. So it's again taking that bigger thing that might seem overwhelming and huge, like some of the examples that you gave, and breaking them down into what can I do today to advance me towards my goal.
Yeah, so getting ready for a job, to apply for your dream job. So let's say your end result is going to be manifest your dream job. So what are 6 things that need to be true in order to manifest your dream job? One might be update your resume.
Right.
Another might be to make a list of places or widen where you're going to search for your jobs. Another one might be to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is all up to date. And then then there would be 3 more things so what if one of them is get certified in some sort of modality, whether that, like, if you're a computer programmer, you get certified in whatever
Python
programming
or something.
products.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to just ask yourself, what are the 6 things that you would need to have your job? Because asking yourself that is much more empowering than going, oh, I can't get this job because it requires. So, like, for example, one of my employees right now, her husband is obtaining his medical coding certificate.
Okay.
And so he needs that in order to apply for this job. But how many people in their minds go, well, I can't apply for that job because I don't have the right certification?
So it's a shift in the wording.
Yes. So, and that's what conscious communications is really all about, is to say to yourself, how can I? What do I need? And you know what? So what if it takes 8 months to get that certification? Then you make the phone call, you look online, you see, how do you get this certification? It's always about asking yourself, how can you get these things, instead of telling yourself you can't get those things. So, we started off and I was telling you my truth about my mantra that I used to have, that I'm not a writer. But yet now I have a book deal and a book launching with the largest publisher of personal development books on the planet, Hay House. And, Louise Hay is my personal idol. And she's just changed my life in so many ways, just learning what she has to teach. But the moment that I could get out of that mantra to say that I'm not a writer, and to actually see it, feel it, believe it, and take action on the fact that I was a writer, I started doing different things. Like, I started taking writers' workshops. I started educating myself. I started writing an outline. I started doing practical things, gathering my research, the things that had impacted me the most throughout my 40 years to get me where I am today.
I like the quote you've got in chapter 2 from George Bernard Shaw. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything.
It's so true, because if you don't change your mind, you're going to be the same person 10 years from now that you are today. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with that, because, feeling content and happy with where you're at is not altogether wrong. But there's a certain percentage of the population that always wants to use their mind and their body to be better every single day.
And there's a certain thing about regret too. I wish I had done X. I wish I had had the chance to do Y. And I wonder what gets people stuck. People who really, really want to do these things, but for some reason don't take action.
I feel like if people knew better, they would do better. And so that goes right back to your limiting beliefs. And I actually like to call them barrier beliefs, because I believe that those beliefs will be a brick wall between what you want and what you are willing to do. So if somebody wants something and they're just not taking action on it, to me, I think there must be a belief in their mind, either conscious or unconscious, that is keeping them from taking that action. It could be that a fear. It could be, it could be that they are afraid of looking bad. It could be that they don't know what's going to happen. It could be that they believe that all of the other people that are trying for the same thing are more qualified. I actually took some notes here I was looking for in my notebook that are, what are 4 things that stop us from going for what we want? So I wrote a process called Break Through Your Breakdown. Okay. So the things that I wrote some notes on that hold you back are fear of failure, looking like a fool in front of other people, your perceived limitations. These are things like, who am I to write a book? Or who am I to ask that person on a date? Or who am I, that's kind of that unworthiness piece that you were talking about. And it makes you stop believing in yourself. Another one, and this one would be true for me, is when I just don't know how. So maybe I want to get a job at Google, but I really just don't know how. So, that's an easy one to fix, because, we live in the information age where you can just look anything up at any moment. Another reason, so when we don't know how, what we end up doing is procrastinating. And then another thing is that we fail to make the time that we need. So failing to make the time that we need is very much a symptom of that procrastination. But when you begin to flip the switch in your head and you become really committed to making then that is when you can make the most unbelievable things happen.
That is speaking to me right now, because I every time I turn around in this online entrepreneur business, because I have a book out as well and do online courses and all the other things, as well as this podcast, and trying to get the material that I've created out there. Every once in a while I run into, well, you need to do X, and I think, oh, but I don't know how.
I don't know how.
And it's overwhelming, because I feel like
it is very overwhelming.
I feel like I'm learning new things every single day, how to use this system, or how to use this program, or how to get my thing out, using this method. And it's exhausting sometimes.
Well, Jen, your future self is out there waving and thanking you for doing all of that massively overwhelming and mind expanding work. Every time you learn something new, you're creating a new neural pathway for yourself, and you are stretching. You are definitely just described a situation where you're outside of your comfort zone, girl.
Yep. Often.
So good. Often. Good for you. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Often. Well, this is great. I'm wondering if, as far as the career advancement goes, if you have any last pieces of advice or tidbits for the listener on that topic.
Well, I think that you should set yourself a really big goal and check out that 1-page action plan of how to make that deliberately happen. and take certain steps. Like, so for example, step 1 can be find your focus, because as we know, what you focus on grows. Success comes from within a growth mindset, and the choices and actions you take every single day will determine your reality. So step 1 is creating absolute laser focus and clarity of desire. And actually, I'll be, offering a free workbook to your listeners. That's also a 5-day challenge that I believe will help them along that goal of accelerating their career path.
That's fantastic. And I'll put that in the show notes over at communicationdiva.com. If you're listening, you can come over there and find the links to all of that.
Very good.
Great. Well, this has been wonderful, and I'm wondering where people can find out more about you, Mary. Where can they connect with you?
The best place, if you want to connect with me personally, I run a Facebook group called Fearless Ambition. And so people can join the Fearless Ambition Facebook group. And we always give all of our content away free in that book. We also have a Fearless Ambition newsletter that anyone can join. My website is maryshores.com. And anything we're giving away free, you can find on maryshores.com, as well as a link to purchase the book. And right now, if you do a pre-order of the book, you will get free the 5-day challenge, Dream with a Deadline. And as well as what I call the Daily Desires Diary, which is a wonderful manifestation tool that is designed to do every single day. You can also find me very easily under the name Mary Shores on any social media platform. So Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and even just www.maryshores.com. And we are happy. And if you send me an email, mary@maryshores.com, I will respond to all emails.
Fantastic. And it would be great if you are connecting with Mary to let her know where you heard about her too.
Yeah, we'd love to know that. I love your show. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Mary. I look forward to hearing how the launch of your book goes. And I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely, Jen. Thank you.
So that was my conversation with Mary Shores, and I will have all of the information as to where you can find Mary and connect with her, including the link to the free gift that she's offering listeners of the Communication Diva podcast over at communicationdiva.com. Look for episode 131. You can find it in the podcast tab or also in the blog tab. And you can go to the bottom of the show notes page and you'll find all of that information there. While you're there, if you're interested in joining my 5-day action challenge on how to get a job search started, then you'll see it on the right-hand side of the website if you're looking on a desktop. If you're not, you'll have to scroll down, but you'll find a box that you can click to join the 5-day challenge to help you get a job search started. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I'd love to hear your feedback, any comments, anything you wanted to add. Drop me a line. Send me a note on any of the platforms that we've got. If you would like to join our private Facebook group for Communication Diva, head over to Facebook and look up the Diva Community. And we're focusing on helping people in the workplace over there. So if you want to jump into that group, you're more than welcome to come by. Anyhow, until next time, I hope you are careful with your words. You think about how you speak about yourself and to yourself as well, and that you practice more conscious communication as your week progresses. Until next time, this is Jen Swanson. Talk to you soon.